Welcome to the NBA Coast to Coast podcast brought to you by thelines.com. Coming to you from the West Coast, Josh Lander, joined by Nate Weitzer. He's on the East Coast. And we've got NBA best bets here on Tuesday for you guys. Bunch of games on the slate tonight. Pretty decent size slate here with some pretty interesting matchups. I will say that we've got some good value here in these best bets. Also have our player props video up as we do each and every weekday. So make sure to subscribe to that page. Continue to follow along with us all season. And as we head into this postseason as well, also head to thelines.com and use everything that we have up on the site right now, including that NBA prop finder tool to make sure you're getting the best odds available to you from all of these books giving us bets this NBA season. Nice little 6-2 night there on Thursday. Last time we saw everybody. Hope everybody had a good Easter weekend. Nate, let's go ahead and kick it off with your first best bet.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to like here tonight. And including the fact that the Mavs are even money at Golden State. And I just, it's a head scratcher. It doesn't really, it doesn't really scare me off. Like the books are throwing out a stinky line in some way because the Mavs are the best team in the NBA right now. And they have a bit of a rest advantage over a team that's just frankly not good at home and hasn't beaten a good team in a while in the Golden State Warriors. And I think the Mavs, with the momentum they have on both ends of the floor, I'm willing to ride with them. Like if it's wrong, that's fine. But I think this is a fine 1 unit bet here. You look at they've played 4 games in 10 days versus the Dubs, who are back home after a 5-game road trip in which they had 5 games in 7 nights. So there is a rest advantage here. And for some reason, the Dubs are actually much worse when they're on normal rest versus a rest advantage or disadvantage. They're 22-29 straight up on equal rest here. And the Mavs are 30-15 if you look at just kind of the overall trend there. But this is more about just how the Mavs are playing right now, specifically how Luka Doncic is playing, coming off eviscerating the other hottest team in the league that's hot on the Warriors' heels, right? Just raining threes on the Rockets. His last 2 at Chase Arena here, 33.5 points per game, but very inefficient. Did not shoot the ball well, but his last 3 have all been big games for the Mavs, and he has been absolutely elite shooting the ball, 53% from deep. Dallas on the road in March has been the highest scoring team in the NBA, 121. They're 7-2. They're raining threes. And Golden State at home in their last 5, they've lost 4 of 5 at home, 124 defensive rating, allowing 16 threes at 42%, allowing the most assists per game in the league. So, what are they going to do with Luka Doncic at the height of his powers? I just do not know. Jonathan Kuminga is also questionable here, and the Dubs in these home games have really depended on his offense on the inside the 3-point line because Steph has been slumping. Dallas is a top 10 interior D in March, and really since they've gotten Gafford going there, and he's going to get more run now, I think, because Derek Lively is going to be out, and I don't mind that in this matchup. Like more Gafford, sure. And then just look at the Dubs schedule lately. They won their last 4 on the road here. Miami, Jimmy sat last minute. Orlando can't score in the fourth quarter whatsoever. They beat Charlotte, but they allowed 24 free throw attempts. They beat the Spurs, but allowed 17 threes. And they couldn't really score against the Magic. So I just don't have a lot to hang your hat on if you're trying to back this Warriors team. And Dallas right now is looking like the best team in the league as far as this sample size right now.
They are. The best team in the league is the Denver Nuggets. Let's all be very clear about that. If you saw what they did to Cleveland last Sunday, it should be in the books that this is the number 1 seed. But that said, Dallas is playing like that. And they actually are coming off a win against Denver not that long ago, right? With the Kyrie lefty finisher. This was a game I was all over as well. This stinks to high heaven as a stinky bet of the day. And to be honest with you, the stinky bet of the day kind of insinuates that we're just going to go with this knowledge that we have and this belief that we have, even though everybody wants to bet on this Dubs team after, I guess, winning a few games in a row, and think it's like everyone still thinks it's 2018, and it's not. This Dubs team is not the same team. They've reverted back to what they were last season when they were at home and they sucked at home and were awesome on the road. Now we're right back to that over the last 20, 30 games. They started the season the inverse, and now it's back to playing really well on the road. Few easier pieces of competition there on the road as of late as well. But that is all sort of a correlation that brings me to the final answer of this is just wrong. Like this line is just wrong, and the Mavs are a better team right now, and everything that they want to do is going to be things that they can't stop. Derek Lively is questionable. He might play, but I am fine with more Daniel Gafford as well. They've been a really nice 1-2 punch, and PJ Washington, as I've said it multiple times, he might be like defensive player of the year for this team and least offensive player of the year for the team. But it comes out to him still having a really nice impact on defense. Jonathan Kuminga also questionable in this one. So yeah, I'm all over the Mavs with you. I was on that one with you as we talked about. I'm going to move it to game number 2 for us, where we're talking about OKC and Philly. And there's a couple of ways to play this OKC at Philadelphia game, and it does matter if 3 guys are questionable and whether they play. Maxey, Embiid is out officially. He's not going to come back today on Tuesday night, but Maxey's questionable. So is SGA, and so is Jalen Williams on the Thunder here. And so I'm kind of assuming that at least one of those 2 dudes sits, because what I'm looking at with this game as I take Philly +5. And I also like the over, to be honest with you. So if you want either of those bets, I think everything I'm going to talk about is honestly correlated to those bets. But I do think Philly can cover here if Maxey plays. And so that, I mean, definitely want to make sure he's playing. He was at shoot around, so a little bit of an encouraging sign that he's going to play. But I think the first thing I was talking about here is the Thunder with their game at Boston tomorrow, classic look ahead spot. Even though they did, they are coming off, they're coming off a really nice win against Phoenix after 2 losses without SGA. And in those 2 losses without SGA, they've been playing a ton faster. But now you look back at the last 2 games that they've played, which have been the most recent ones without Shai Gilgeous, and they played at a 92 pace, and they've been sort of slowly slowing down that pace as they go on without SGA. So I do think that the fact that pace has slowed a little bit for them scares me a little bit more from the over. But if we do get this one of 2 dudes playing for J-Dub or SGA, and Maxey does play, I'm really good with this +5. Like I said, look ahead spot with Boston on Wednesday night, and now with by the way, what is Phoenix after they just got smacked by this team and then come back and have a really nice win against the Pels? Like, I don't know what to do with that team. Devin Booker, I guess, is just the Pelican killer, because he went for 50 for 30 games in a row against that team. I digress. The stuff versus the stuff for this matchup specifically is really down to, like, without SGA in there to sort of like have a half court offense. That's where I think this game gets muddled up and in favor of Philly, whose offense has been awesome. Their defense has not been awesome, but they've been playing at the slowest pace over their last 5. They've covered in 4 of their last 5, and they've played really good teams, by the way. Like, they've had the 5th best strength of schedule during that time, with a couple wins, keeping it close at least, and beating the Clippers, then keeping it close with the Kings and the Cavs, and doing what they need to win a couple games in that last 5. So I think the fact that their rebounding has come around, which is wild to me, because it was awful, and now it's like 4th best is their rebound percentage in the last 4 games, playing good rebounding teams, like between Cleveland and Sac in there, and the Clippers as well. Like, it's not like they just like played the Wizards and Hornets a bunch of times, and that's why their rebound percentage went up, right? So they're a few more minutes for Mo Bamba, but also, honestly, Tobias Harris been doing a really nice job, Kelly Oubre as well. It's been sort of a team defensive effort as they sort of spread those boards around, and I just think the fact that they've actually also been playing offense now, with Maxey shooting a ton of shots above the break, and then making a lot of shots above the break and in transition, even though they're playing at a somewhat slow pace, they are getting down and not, doing their best to not let the other team set up their defense, which I think is huge for OKC, who has been good in transition, but down low and everywhere going to the rim, I think there's going to be plenty of opportunity for this Philly squad, who has been scoring down low a bunch more, as well as right outside the above the break. So, like, 2 spots on the floor that you can get something against this this defense here for OKC, excuse me. And so I think, yeah, without the ability to turn people over, which is something that they were relying on a ton as well, where the Oklahoma City Thunder, something that they haven't done quite as well. You see J-Dub, Jalen Williams, being so much more involved in the offense, that he hasn't been quite the same dude on defense with the level of steals and points off turnovers. So everything, even if Jalen Williams plays and SGA doesn't, this is definitely still a good 5 points with Philly at home for me.
Yeah, I mean, at home is the key. 9 of their last 12 have been on the road. They've covered all 3 at home that they actually have been there. So we partially are dumping on them because they haven't had Embiid and they just haven't been the same team. But I mean, it's also a really tough schedule stretch for them. A lot of those games like way out west. And I mean, they got right against this horrible Toronto Raptors defense, got some things going on offense. And now, yeah, they might face a shorthanded OKC team. I think the emotional lift, even though Embiid's not playing, but this knowing that he might be back next game, that he might be in the building in street clothes with that crowd at their back, the crowd that's been kind of like nervously waiting for the last couple months. Like, do we have a shot here this year? And now they know they do. So that's why I was on the Sixers. Whether Embiid played limited minutes or not, but I think you can still kind of ride that emotional wave, even though he's not going to suit up here. Speaking of those horrible Toronto Raptors, though, we got to take an over in Toronto. 232.5. It keeps climbing here because it opened a little bit too low. With news that Emmanuel Quickley and RJ Barrett will be back. So that this horrible offense is now going to have a significant lift. Gary Trent is going to be out, but I still like those two guys, keeping up Toronto's end of the bargain in terms of like they have scored 115 a game when they've had RJ in there since the All-Star break. That's 10 more points per game. They played at 100.4 pace with IQ versus a 96 pace without him. And they're the worst three-point shooting team in the league by far without IQ in the lineup. Still a poor defensive team, and they're still going to be a poor defensive team with no Scotty Barnes, Pirtle, Boucher. Now Agbaji joins those guys on the sidelines. 120 defensive rating in March, third most paint points, third most fast break points, anything you want, just the highest field goal percentage allowed. If Kelly Olynyk has to start on Anthony Davis, like we don't know if AD and Brown are going to play in this game. But I think one of them will play. It seems like, they have the parade, the tomato can parade here, Toronto and then Washington back to back. They can probably split that the way they have in the past. And one of them sits tonight. But I mean, yeah, AD, that's barbecue chicken against Kelly Olynyk. And the Lakers have done a very good job without LeBron. I mean, we said that the splits have stabilized. They've actually been higher scoring and faster paced recently without LeBron. 125 a game, 100 pace. In their last four without him, 30-10 assist to turnover ratio. I know you'll be all over D'Lo assists if you think LeBron isn't going to play here against a Toronto team that's just, abysmal. Like I mentioned, they gave up 135 to Philly. They gave up 145 to the Knicks. Those are teams that rank 28th and 22nd in scoring. And to give up that many points, and now you face a Lakers team that's top 3 offensive rating since the break. Like they have really figured some things out offensively, and maybe this opened a little lower because they're coming off 2 low-scoring roadies, just a horrendous shooting outing at Indy for both teams, and then just an ugly game at Brooklyn, but it was played at 100 pace, just, Brooklyn mucks it up. Their previous couple road games was the double overtime Milwaukee and then a 260 total at Memphis, and the key stat here, they've now gone over in 8 of their last 10 when road favorites, so they are sizable favorites here, and that trend could continue.
Absolutely. Yep. I'm all over that with you as well. I mean, IQ and RJ Barrett certainly matter here with Emmanuel Quickley in there. The pace just, jumps way up. You kind of mentioned that 4 points per 100 possessions with him in there. Their defense is a little bit better as well, but it's really about the amount of the efficiency in transition, which goes way up as well with those two dudes, both RJ and Emmanuel Quickley. Having Emmanuel Quickley as another shooter out there is huge, as Gary Trent is actually out in this one as well. So it was about to be real bad without anybody on the floor. But now you've got both those guys in there, and I'm not saying by any means that they're going to win this game. But I mean, it wouldn't surprise me at all if they come out and have like a really solid first quarter, and these two dudes are just stoked to actually be playing basketball again for at least one game until they probably get yanked again. But it all does lead to an over with the way that these two teams have been playing at a very fast pace, especially for this Lakers squad on the road. So I'm going to close it out here with a little upset in terms of Houston covering at Minnesota, plus 7.5 now. Got bet down about a point or so. And this is a little bit not as crazy to me as the Mavs and Dubs, because that is a total head scratcher. But I think this one is a little bit off as well by a couple points. And I think we're giving Minnesota, maybe there's something to the idea that Minnesota's battling for a 1 seed in the conference. But I mean, Houston's fighting for their literal lives to even play another game. So I think that we're getting some value here based on the fact that, you kind of mentioned it about this Dallas team. They just went 24 of 51 from the 3-point line to wax this team and really beat them by, 15 points in that game, 14 points in that last game. So, Houston was hanging around, but they definitely do not have the 3-point guns to hang with Dallas if they're going to make threes. Guess who doesn't make threes? This Minnesota squad. I don't think that they're going to be able to score at the level that this Dallas squad did. This total is obviously much lower. And I mean, honestly, like running out into the transition definitely would be what Houston wants to do if they can effectively do it against this Minnesota team, who has been getting back on defense and limits teams to like about their bottom five in terms of, or top five, I should say, on defense in terms of limiting fast break points, transition points, all that. But I mean, for this Houston team, like basically just looking at the way that they've played without Şengün has basically turned into a fast break, play down low a lot more type of team, because now they're talking about actual point guard play from Fred VanVleet as opposed to having their point center, and their 3-point shooting has skyrocketed. And that's a bit of this, the fear here for taking Houston is that their 3-point shots just completely dissipate, and that they're not able to kind of hang it from down low at all, because I don't think Jabari Smith and Amin Thompson are going to get it done down low. Jock Landale's actually been playing pretty well, was playing still about 22 minutes. If you do get props up for Landale, I think he's going to probably surprise you with how much he has to play with the bigs down low. We've seen plenty of Naz Reid and Rudy Gobert on the floor at the same time. So I do think like all those dudes that anybody, it's all hands on deck for anybody that can play down low for this Houston squad. And that's why that's what scares me about taking that over, is the idea that they're just going to be able to get it and go with Jalen Green and Amin Thompson doing the bulk of that get it and go work. With Jabari Smith in there as well, I do think there's something to the idea that those three are trying to run that fast break. Fred VanVleet as well. Between those four dudes, like they are going to be trying to get out in the fast break. It's really just going to be a matter of, can they limit what this Minnesota team wants to do on offense? And I think the answer is yes. They've both basically been at the same place in terms of Houston's defense and this Minnesota offense. Like Minnesota's offense still, it's about fifth, let's say 12th, 13th over the course of the last 10 games. If you combine, offensive efficiency, they're 16th, but they have been shooting the ball decently well. They just play at such a slow pace that there's not that much of an opportunity for points. I think as long as Houston can do what they've been doing, which is, at least able to limit what people do when they get in the paint. Now they've had some trouble at the rim inside of 5 feet for sure. Not that that Şengün was like a world beater down low. But if you're telling me that their strength of their defense is actually being able to limit things on the perimeter and like mid-range jump shooters, then like they're stopping the best offensive player on Minnesota. They're going to be limiting what Ant wants to do as well as anybody, with Dillon Brooks obviously taking him on. So those matchups kind of lead me to go like, all right, if Houston can at least match up with this Minnesota squad down on the perimeter rather, then they should be okay down low. I'm not really scared of Rudy coming out and just like handling business there. I actually think that this one is live for a money line play as well, because if they do get out in transition and those shots aren't falling for Minnesota, which they have not been in terms of the mid-range or the above the break stuff from 3 or even in the corner anywhere, like then yeah, I'm going to feel good that like Houston can hang in this game as far as if it comes to sort of more of a jump shooting game, and a game that's out in the transition a bit more.
Yeah, I mean, the thing I pointed out to you is that the Wolves have the worst offensive rating in the clutch since the All-Star break. So if it is a close game, yeah, they might just cough it up. Even if it's not a close game, they actually have the second worst offensive rating in the entire fourth quarter. And Houston is fourth in that department. I'm talking about just post All-Star break, just recent stuff. Houston also has a terrible defensive rating in the fourth. So that does speak to the under. I mean, the over at a relatively low total here, 215. But I think, yeah, just when you have such a low total and you have a feisty team like the Rockets that's just found a way to be in every game, like covering 8 seems really difficult for this Wolves team right now, which is still, very much missing Cat. And, Ant, he's gonna be hounded by Amin Thompson and others, and that's why their clutch offense is not that great. You get the ball out of his hands, who else is going to beat you?
Yeah, 100%. That's going to be a problem for them down the stretch and in the playoffs, big time. But that is all the time we have for you in Best Bets. Continue to follow along if you would. Subscribe to that page. Check out the Play a Props video we also have up for you today and each and every day. And until we see you next, happy betting.